Good afternoon, Tokes. Well, the voting is now underway in the next round. As you mentioned, we'll get the results later. And those candidates will be desperately trying to get the votes of Sajid Javid's supporters. He was the last one to be knocked out earlier on today. He has a substantial number of voters behind him still, and it could mean all the difference for those two, because in the course of this race, it has always been Jeremy Hunt in second, and now it's Michael Gove who has leapfrogged him. Michael Gove on 61 and Jeremy Hunt on 59. So they will be desperately trying to get the votes of Sajid Javid's backers in order to ensure that they are against Boris in those final two. But the question is, can they do that? Because people now will be thinking that perhaps Boris is a foregone conclusion. Perhaps they might need to publicly back him in order to try to get themselves a job in Boris's possible government cabinet.
Well, even though that Boris Johnson remains the overwhelming favourite, could he still be upset by the Conservative Party leadership?
He definitely could, because throughout this competition it's been clear that Boris's team's biggest worry is Boris himself, because they've kept him bunkered, they've kept him away from one-on-one interviews, they've restricted at the press conference the number of broadcasters that got to ask him a question, and we now enter a period of 4 weeks where Boris's life, both personally and professionally, is going to absolutely be picked over in a far greater detail than he has had so far in this competition, and they're not going to be able to keep him away from interviews for the periods that they have done. He's going to face a number of public hustings with Conservative Party members up and down the country, so it will be for them to decide. But you have to remember, this isn't a normal demographic. One of Boris's big pledges so far that he's made, some sort of gaffe, but he knows his audience, is that he was going to increase the amount that you'd start paying the top rate of tax. So therefore, if you earn more money, you won't start paying until you make £80,000 a year on the highest rate of UK tax. Now, he knows that the demographic voting for him in this competition, those 160,000, are older, whiter and richer. It's 0.2% of the UK's population, and he is very much playing to that crowd. And I think that kind of message from him will go down well with them. So he just has to stop too many embarrassing details of his life coming out and try and defend some aspects of his record which are quite contentious.
Then can you talk us through, the rundown for the selection? What's going to happen now? What's the timetable?
Well, the voting will take place this afternoon. As I mentioned, it's going on right now in the House of Commons. Interestingly, in the last round, for the first time, we had two spoilt ballots. Two Conservative MPs decided to spoil their ballots rather than vote for any candidates. And I think that would have been from the quite Remain part of the party. So we'll see in the next few hours whether or not there is any more spoilt ballots and where the movement shifts, where the Sajid Javid voters go. And then this evening we should know who those final two are. And then they will start campaigning over the next couple of weeks. They'll have TV debates. They'll be going up and down the country. And then on the week of the 22nd of July, the sequence that takes place is that once their votes have been counted by the Conservative Party members around the country, the Prime Minister will receive the result, it will be declared, and then the Prime Minister will go to Buckingham Palace to resign for the Queen. The Queen will then ask her who she should then ask to form a government. The Prime Minister will then say the person who has won this election. The Queen will then invite that person, either Jeremy Hunt, Michael Gove, or Boris Johnson, to Buckingham Palace and invite them to form a government. They'll then return to number 10 Downing Street, where they will begin that process of trying to assemble a new cabinet. We're likely to see quite a few departures from the current government and some more names coming back in, possibly the likes of Dominic Raab, who went out earlier in the competition, getting back into government. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks here, Tokes.